You've done enough. You've ruined everything. Young woman, what else do you want? Rachel, already filled with anger, flung her bouquet away and walked out of the church. Oh, mission accomplished. This is exactly what I want. Sir, this is exactly what I want. Bella said, facing Rachel's father. This is nonsense. Arrant nonsense. Please call the police. Call the police. Who is she? The groom's mother shouted as she stood up, walking toward Andrew, who was now visibly sweating and also running after Rachel. Please, Rachel, let's talk about it. Rachel. The tension in the air was suffocating, and everyone was still staring, waiting for the next move. Bella stood at the entrance of the church, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't the whispers of the congregation that made her nervous, nor the sight of the wedding guests shifting in their seats. It was the knowledge that in mere moments everything would be set into motion. Her fingers tightened around the small box in her hand, the one she had kept close to her heart for the last 4 years. Today was the day she would finally make him pay. It had been years since she had let herself think about Andrew, the man who once stole her heart and broke it just as easily. She had been in love and had believed in their relationship, but he had played her, used her for nothing more than a bet with his friends. Back then, Andrew had been the perfect gentleman, the charming young man who swept her off her feet with his sweet words and promises of love. But all of it was a lie. She had found out the truth when it was too late. To Andrew, she had been nothing more than a challenge, a woman who was difficult to date, as his friend had put it. But Bella had fallen for it, given herself to him, trusted him in a way that only someone truly in love could. But that was all before the night she found out the truth. The night he took her to bed, promising her the world, and she believed him. Andrew had pushed and pushed, his sweet words turning into impatient demands until Bella finally gave in, agreed to lie with him, thinking that their relationship was serious. She had asked him about their future together, about the possibility of introducing him to her parents, and in that moment, she had been blindsided. Andrew had been hesitant at first, but then, like the coward he was, he went along with it. He introduced Bella to a couple of strangers, claiming they were his parents. The deception had cut deeper than she had imagined. But Bella had stayed in the relationship, blind to the signs, believing in the future they could have together. She had gotten pregnant shortly after that introduction. She had been overjoyed, but when she told Andrew, his response was far from what she had expected. "You need to abort it," he had said casually. "We are not married yet. Let's wait till we are married before we start having kids." She had agreed, thinking that he was right, that it would be the best thing for them. She hadn't known then what kind of damage that decision would cause. She hadn't known that her womb would be forever damaged, that she would never be able to have children again. It wasn't until weeks later, when he had finally told her the truth, that everything fell apart. "I've been using you, Bella," he had confessed, his words cutting through her like a knife. "It was just a bet. This relationship was never real. At all. It was never real. I'm sorry." The betrayal had been almost too much to bear. The man she loved, the man she had trusted, had used her for a mere wager with his friends. She had been nothing more than a pawn in his game. And when he had broken up with her, it was as if the life had drained from her. 4 years had passed since that night. 4 long years of heartbreak, pain, and regret. But now, she was ready to make him pay. The church was packed, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. The guests were seated in their pews, dressed in their best attire, their eyes trained on the altar. At the front, the groom stood tall in his navy blue tuxedo, his face a mask of nervous excitement. He had no idea what was about to happen. The bride, a stunning young woman named Rachel, stood beside him. She smiled up at Andrew, unaware of the storm brewing, just moments away. The pastor began the ceremony, his voice booming through the speakers as he spoke of love, commitment, and the sacredness of marriage. But Bella was focused on something else entirely. It was time. She entered the church and sat quietly. The pastor called out for the first time. If anyone here has just cause why this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, let them speak now, or forever hold their peace. A long tense silence followed, and then the pastor called out the second time. I repeat, if anyone here has just cause why this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, let them speak now, or forever hold their peace. Suddenly, a hand shot up from the back of the church, and the whole room fell silent. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as they turned to see who had raised their hand. The bride stiffened, her smile faltering, while Andrew's face paled. A man stood up, his posture casual, as though he had just decided to stretch his legs. The congregation looked on in confusion. I just want to ask where the restroom is. I want to use the restroom, please. The man said with a sheepish smile. A few chuckles escaped from the crowd, but the tension remained. Who be this one now? Someone muttered from the congregation. One of the ushers immediately attended to the man. Then the pastor called out the last time. Bella's heart raised as she stood up. The man sitting next to her turned to look, his eyes widening when he saw the anger burning in her eyes. Bella made her way toward the front, the silence thick with anticipation. All eyes were on her as she stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She walked past the bride and the groom, her gaze fixed solely on Andrew. As she reached the altar, the pastor's voice faltered. Miss, may I ask what you are doing? But Bella didn't wait for him to finish. Andrew, she said, her voice cold and steady. Do you know who I am? Andrew froze. The world seemed to slow down as his eyes locked with hers. Recognition flickered across his face. The pastor, sensing what was about to happen, signaled to the ushers to quickly handle the mess before it was too late. But Bella, who had made up her mind to pay back, stood firm on her decision. The usher tried to stop her to maintain decorum, but she began to shout and threatened to make a live video that the church condones an immoral wedding. Then the pastor signaled to the usher to leave her. Andrew finally found his voice. Bella, he said, his voice was barely a whisper. I'm the woman you bet on, the woman you used, the woman you ruined, she said, her eyes burning with fury. You wanted to play a game, Andrew, but guess what? The game is over. The room went dead silent. The guests, the brides and the groom's parents, even the pastor, were all frozen in shock. No one had expected this. Bella pulled out a small box from her bag. She tossed it at Andrew's feet. Do you remember this? I kept it for you. Andrew, all these years, a little gift for the man who ruined my life. Andrew's eyes widened as he glanced at the box, unsure of what it contained. The guests were holding their breath now, completely spellbound. With a slow motion, Andrew picked up the box and opened it. Inside was a small, delicate item, an ultrasound picture. Do you recognize that? Bella asked, her voice dripping with venom. That was our child. The one you told me to abort. The one you didn't care about. Well, guess what? That was what you did to me. Andrew, you killed something that could have been the best part of my life, and you don't get to pretend it didn't happen. Andrew went completely blank as he looked at the ultrasound. His face was pale, a mixture of shock, regret, and the undeniable weight of the truth slamming into him. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. It was as if his tongue had suddenly decided to pack up and go on vacation. The picture felt like a knife being plunged into his chest. He stepped back, visibly recoiling from the evidence of his past sins. The church was as quiet as the library in a graveyard. Bella could practically hear the heartbeat of the entire congregation, each one waiting for the next move, holding their breath like they were watching a slow motion car crash. Bella didn't give him the luxury of time. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a low menacing whisper. You thought you could get away with it. Bet on my heart like it was some kind of game. And you. The guests, still trying to process the bizarre spectacle unfolding in front of them, exchanged confused glances. Some looked at each other like they were at the wrong occasion. The bride, Rachel, stood frozen in shock, her hands trembling as she clutched a bouquet. She couldn't seem to decide whether she should be angry, confused, or just plain embarrassed. Her wide eyes were fixed on Bella, as though the woman had just popped out of thin air, ready to ruin her big day. Andrew, say something. Tell me this is a lie, she said anxiously, facing Andrew. Bella, with a flick of her wrist, took a step closer to Andrew, her voice rising in intensity. Answer her. You have suddenly become deaf. You used me. You manipulated me. You tore my heart apart. And I let you because I was stupid. Stupid enough to think that you were different. But now, I am here to make you pay. Andrew's face turned a shade of red that could rival the brightest tomato. He fumbled for words, but only managed a stammer. Bella, no. Bella cut him off sharply. Don't say anything. It's too late for apologies. Too late for excuses. She turned to the pastor, who had been awkwardly standing by, unsure of what to do. Pastor, do you think this union deserves your marriage blessings? Precisely this man, Andrew, after he had deceitfully ruined my life? I think he needs a reality check first, Bella said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The pastor, who had been doing his best to keep the situation under control, now found himself in the awkward position of trying to navigate a crisis that was bigger than his usual Sunday sermon. Well, young woman, I beseech you in the name of the Lord. Can we settle this, please? He stammered, his hand nervously adjusting his glasses. Andrew, still staring at Bella like she was a wild animal about to bite, finally snapped out of his dazed trance. Bella, please. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a bet. I'm sorry, please. His voice was shaky, completely stripped of any confidence. Don't even try to justify it now. Bella's voice was cold, her face devoid of any emotion. Rachel stood there, her mouth widely open, her hands still clutching the bouquet, but there was no joy in her expression. Her dream day had been shattered, her groom exposed for the fraud he truly was. She took a step forward, her voice quivering. What is this? What do you want from him? Bella didn't even glance at her. I'm not here for you, young lady, she said with a smirk. But for you, Andrew, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, and now you're going to pay for everything you did. The room was thick with anticipation, the kind of heavy silence that only comes when something huge is about to happen. Every eye was on Bella, every ear straining to hear what she would say next. Andrew's face was now a mask of desperation. He reached out, his hands trembling. Please, Bella, this isn't you. I never meant to hurt you, please. I'm sorry. Okay, just let me explain. Let's get through this day, please. Let's get through this day and I will make it right. I promise, please. Bella couldn't hold back the bitter laugh that escaped her lips. Make it right. Oh, Andrew, you really think there is a right way to fix this? She said as she took a step closer to him, her eyes narrowing with disdain. The bride's and groom's parents, who have been watching with uncertainty, now realized the scene before them wasn't just any drama. Rachel's father suddenly stood up, his confusion giving way to anger. He stepped forward, glaring at Bella. You've done enough. You've ruined everything. Young woman, what else do you want? Rachel, already filled with anger, flung her bouquet away and walked out of the church. Oh, mission accomplished. This is exactly what I want. Sir, this is exactly what I want. Bella said, facing Rachel's father. This is nonsense. Arrant nonsense. Please call the police. Call the police. Who is she? The groom's mother shouted as she stood up, walking toward Andrew, who was now visibly sweating and also running after Rachel. Please, Rachel, let's talk about it. Rachel. The tension in the air was suffocating, and everyone was still staring, waiting for the next move. Bella stepped back. She had done what she had came to do, expose him for the coward and liar he was. She could feel the weight of it all, the bitterness of it, settling deep in her chest. She began to walk away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She could hear the whispers behind her, the shocked murmurs of the guests who had witnessed the entire spectacle. It was done. The wedding was, of course, never going to continue. Andrew stood at the entrance of the church. He felt the full weight of his actions crash down on him. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched Rachel drive away in anger. Bella walked past him, gave him a satisfied smile, and walked away. She was done being someone's game. The pastor, unsure of what to do, cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, it looks like the ceremony has been postponed. Everyone, please remain calm. Everyone, please. But the guests were already murmuring amongst themselves, some laughing nervously, others in shock. It was a moment no one would forget, a moment that would live on in gossip for years to come. The guests trickled out, murmuring about the scandal they had just witnessed. Andrew stood there frozen in shame. His groomsmen surrounded him. They tried to cover his shame and encouraged him to leave the scene. The woman who had torn his life apart was gone, but her words, those stinging truths, lingered like a bitter taste in his mouth. But that wasn't the end. The next day, Rachel's family called for a meeting. They weren't interested in making headlines or causing a public scandal. They were determined to settle things like civilized people. After all, Andrew had ruined their daughter's wedding, and they had every right to press charges for what Bella had done. But Rachel's parents, pragmatic as they were, chose a different route. They weren't looking for retribution, they were looking for a solution. They called Bella Miss Bella. Rachel's father, Mr. Okoje, began, his voice firm but respectful. We want peace, not a circus. You have disrupted our daughter's wedding, and we cannot ignore that. But instead of going down the legal route, we ask you, what is it that you want? What exactly will bring you peace? The room was quiet as Bella sat across from them, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the table, her gaze unwavering. She had expected anger, perhaps accusations, maybe even threats. But peace? It was almost laughable. She looked up, her eyes piercing through them, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then her lips parted. I want Andrew to marry me. The words hit the room like a bomb. Rachel's mother, Mrs. Okoje, gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Rachel herself remained motionless, her face drained of color. Bella, Mr. Okoje said slowly, as if testing her, you've made your point. You've humiliated Andrew publicly. But marriage, is that really what you want? Yes, she said, her voice calm and steady. I want him to marry me, or I will make sure he never marries anyone else. Andrew's past action had cost him everything, and now he was paying the price. The family was cornered. They knew they couldn't undo the mess, and after a tense silence, they agreed. And so, a few months later, Andrew and Bella got married. It was a court wedding, but this time, it wasn't for love. It was a union forged out of revenge and a twisted sense of justice. The months that followed were filled with a kind of emptiness that neither of them could ignore. In the early days of their marriage, Andrew tried to go through the motions. He tried to be the husband Bella deserved, or rather, the one he thought he should be. But there was no passion in their home, no joy, no real connection. At night, when the lights were off, Bella lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of Andrew's deep, slow breathing. She couldn't sleep, but not because she was unhappy. No, it was more than that. She could feel the tension in their marriage, the invisible walls between them. Andrew wasn't happy. That much was clear. He spent most of his time brooding, staring out the window like a man lost in his thoughts. He once confident Demaniel had disappeared, replaced by a man who seemed to carry the weight of a mistake he could never fix. Months passed, and the reality of his marriage to Bella sank in deeper with every passing day. Late at night, when Bella was already asleep, Andrew would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about those friends who had pushed him to make that stupid belt all those years ago. The ones who had laughed at his expense treated his relationship with Bella like a game. They were all happily married now, living their lives with their families as if nothing had ever happened. They hadn't been the ones to lose something precious, to be trapped in a marriage that was nothing more than a reminder of his past mistake, while he remained trapped in the mess he had created, reaping the bitter fruits of his actions. He had played the game, but in the end, the joke was on him. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, he would wonder what might have been if he had just been honest with Bella from the beginning. What if he had never made that bet? What if he had been the man she thought he was? Would things have turned out differently, or would the damage have been done regardless? 6 months into the marriage, the cracks began to show. Bella couldn't deny it any longer. She had tried to ignore it, tried to tell herself that maybe things would get better, but she couldn't keep up the pretense. One evening, as Andrew sat at the dining table, lost in his thoughts, she finally spoke. Andrew, this isn't working, he said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. This marriage is not healthy. Neither of us is happy. And your parents, they hate me like a dirty pig. There is no love anywhere. I'm not doing this for revenge anymore. I'm not doing this to keep you locked in a cage. Andrew didn't say anything at first. He just stared at his hands, his face edged with sorrow. Then, slowly, he nodded, as if relieved to hear her words. I agree, he said, his voice low. I don't want to keep pretending either. I've made enough mistakes for a lifetime. Bella's heart ached for him, for the man who had once been full of life, now hollowed out by regret. But she knew this was the right choice. It wasn't just for him, it was for her too. They needed to go their separate ways. We will get a divorce, Bella continued, and we move on. You can be with Rachel, and I'll, I'll find my peace. Andrew nodded, unable to speak. He wasn't sure if he was relieved, but at least he felt like he had the chance to fix something, even if it wasn't his marriage to Bella. A week later, the divorce papers were signed. Months passed, and Bella's life began to change. She felt lighter, freer than she had been in years. There was no longer the weight of a failed marriage hanging over her. She was in control of her destiny again, and so she decided to start anew, this time with a family of her own. She adopted two children, a 4-year-old girl, playful and full of life, and a 5-month-old boy with big brown eyes and a smile that could melt anyone's heart. Bella poured her love into them, deciding not to remarry. She was content, focused on giving her children everything they needed. Andrew, on the other hand, found his way back to Rachel. They married quietly, away from the chaos and judgment. They had a family of their own, but there was always a sense that the past, his past, would forever cast a shadow over their happiness. In the quiet of her home, Bella watched her children playing together in the garden. She smiled softly as her daughter ran up to her, giggling and asking for a piggyback ride. As she lifted her little girl onto her back, she realized something important. No matter how painful the past had been, she had built something beautiful out of it. She had found peace. She had taken control of her happiness. She didn't need anyone to define it for her, and she had given her children a future filled with love. And as for Andrew, he had learned the hard way that actions have consequences. Hello, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, kindly give it a big thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe if you have not subscribed. And remember to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our amazing stories. Also, if you enjoy it, share it. Do not enjoy it alone and leave a comment. Until next time, bye.